Internet. Nice to see you again. I hope that the connection is good wherever you're watching from. If you're the watcher, welcome. What I'm going to talk to you about today in this video is strategic planning. Strategic planning is a topic that is very useful, especially if you are working in anything that requires strategic planning. If you have a job that requires you to think about big issues or big topics or big strategies to get from where you are to where you want to go, then it is vital that you understand the concepts of strategies and strategic planning and the actionable methods of planning your strategy. Now, that may seem very obvious to you. Of course, it isn't always entirely obvious what to do. So, we will use this particular video discussion to cover said topic in specific areas. So, if you are a marketer, what should you be looking at? Well, on a big picture level, you need to decide what are your goals, what are your milestones, and what are your benchmarks. And then you have some foundation for measuring how you are progressing from the beginning of your strategic plan all the way through the end results of executing said plan. How you carry out said plan depends on your tactics. And I'm not going to go through the world of tactics right now, because I do that quite a lot and discuss all sorts of methods. If you're not familiar with those, feel free to watch other videos on my channel that discuss things like lean and agile and fragile marketing, fast fail marketing, goofy-footed marketing, meandering marketing, etc. There's no shortage of content on this channel about that. We are here to talk about strategic planning for your marketing. So once you've been assigned, or once you've decided to carry out a strategic plan, you need to understand, as I said, your goals and benchmarks and measurable milestones. Well, how do you do that? Well, first you set your goals. Well, how do you set your goals? Well, normally you set your goals by having a discussion first, or an online discussion, a chat, an email thread, whatever it is, with whomever else it is you're working with to develop these goals. If you're a solo worker and you have to develop it all on your own, that's fine too. What's important is you write down the notes, because even if you have photographic memory, it helps to write things down. Some people will say, well, I don't learn well by writing, I learn by doing. Okay, that's fine. But writing things down will, first of all, actually cause the neurons in your brain to stimulate real muscle memory in the brain, and that will actually ingrain the strategic plan of your goals physically into your brain and throughout your body. This is a physiological fact, not up for debate. If you can prove otherwise, please by all means demonstrate it to the scientific and medical community, which has long been able to show that writing does in fact cause such muscle memory. So, when you write down your goals, establish what it is you want to do. What is the point of your overall strategy? What is the purpose of having this strategy? Why do you need such a strategy? How will it help you to achieve your broader goals? What are the pros and cons of having said strategy? And once you have that list and the answers to those questions, you'll be much better suited to write down what it is you're trying to achieve. You need to define your business goals and your marketing goals. You need to be able to define what are the key business drivers that you are trying to accomplish and improve. You need to be able to write down what are the key performance metrics that you'll be able to use later as you further develop your plan and decide on which tactics to use in order to achieve the goals and the milestones and the measurable benchmarks, or the other way around. Goals, benchmarks, and measurable milestones, however you'd like to do it. Either way, the benchmarks and milestones should be measurable, and frankly the goals should too. But the goals are bigger picture, so you may have less to measure because they are the aggregate sum of the achievements of the benchmarks and milestones, or milestones and benchmarks, whichever order you want to put them in. So now what do? You've written down your goals. You've written down your strategic purpose, the pros and cons. You've defined what your business is, who your target demographics are, your target customers, the purpose, the reason why you need to do this, how it's going to help you, what you will be able to do once you achieve these things, when you want to achieve these things by, what you'd like to be able to achieve along the way that will help you accelerate as you progress. And you need to be able to write down along the way on that timeline what are the measurable milestones, right? And the benchmarks. Well, the benchmarks are you're starting off, let's say, at zero, or maybe even starting in a deficit because maybe something happened and you need to recover from it before you're even at zero. How do you do that? Well, very simply, you do that by writing down the benchmarks on your timeline. So you're in a negative, worst case scenario, deficit scenario. How do you get to zero from the deficit? Do you have the funding available to carry out your mission? If not, how do you plan with the resources that you have to get there? Do you need to get more funding first? Or do you need to use the funding that you have actively so that you can use that funding to launch your strategy and hopefully use some of the revenue it generates along the way in order to develop the the strategy and carry it out to the next phase and generate further revenues. If you're seeking funding, do you need to go to angel investors or VCs or other kinds of investors who might be able to help you achieve your goal? If you're in a startup, should you go to friends and family? Should you go to friends of friends? What are the kinds of funding sources that you need to reach out to? Who should you use to reach out to these people? Should it be you making calls and emails directly to people? Should you use a broker or brokers? Because there's a massive amount of companies that are specialists in facilitating brokerages and brokering meetings and creating, appointments, phone calls, email exchanges between people seeking funding and those who are funding startups. Do you have your pitch deck ready? I understand making presentations may be boring and annoying to some, but you need one because people expect it. It doesn't mean that you have to make it 50 slides long. In fact, you can use the Kawasaki method of just having it be about 10 to 15 slides. The problem is once you start making your pitch deck, then you will often find that 10 to 15 slides may actually be quite difficult to put everything into. And that's the trick. You don't put everything in it. You just want to give the potential investors enough of a taste so that they'll be interested in finding out more. You do not want to try to present everything. Pitch deck is basically like a form of advertising. You're telling people what is it that your company does, what problem it solves, what opportunity it brings, a little bit about who the team is. Maybe you tell them a tiny bit about how you do this and your contact information. You don't want to get bogged down in things that are too technical because that really will not help your cause. Getting funding is an art, not a science. Getting funding is all about connecting the dots between your idea and the bank account in which you're receiving the funds from investors. And along the way, you'll be sending dozens, if not hundreds, possibly even thousands of emails, and making phone calls, and having appointments online or face-to-face. It remains to this day, despite the recent trend in the rise in popularity of having meetings on Zoom, Google Meet, etc., that investors especially want to know the people that they're investing in. So, if you can meet with investors, you should do so. If that means going to individual meetings or meeting people at conferences or what have you, meeting them in small groups, meetups, private dinners, whatever it is, meet them when you can. Because people tend to put trust and faith into the investments they make more when they happen to know the people personally. It is much harder to convince somebody to invest in projects when they really don't know anything about the investors personally. And on the other side, it is much easier and much more common for people to invest in things when they know the actual owners or the entrepreneurs or the people that are going to make it happen. And so you should do that because it is far more likely to get you an investment faster. Should you take a bank loan? Should you look for a research grant? Should you take government grants? Should you look for other forms of funding? The answer depends on your context. If you have a product that is ready to market, you'll probably need more than a small research grant. You may get enough from a government grant, but there's no guarantee of that. So that is the first step in creating your strategic plan. And I will continue this in the next video. Until then, happy planning.